All right, guys, we're going to start the show. Judah, we're on time.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. We're going to start the program here in a matter of moments. Take a look at the screen for today's headlines. Take a look at the screen for today's headlines. Judah, we're on time. We're on time. We are live on my personal Facebook page, Judah. We are live on I Love CVille, J-Dubs. We're live on the I Love CVille group, J-Dubs.
Yep.
You confirm LinkedIn for me?
It's live.
Oh, LinkedIn's live as well. Well done, Judah. I'm going to confirm I Love CVille Food Facebook for you here.
It's live.
Oh, it's live. Excellent work, Judah Wickower. I saw that we are live on YouTube, J-Dubs.
Yep.
Are we live on Twitter?
Yep.
Gosh, you are doing a great job today.
Thank you.
It was a full panel of very impressive guests on Today y Mañana this morning.
Oh, yeah. Very full. Lots of great people, though.
Lots of great people. Yeah, very, very. It was just a positive vibe in the studio this morning.
Yeah, definitely.
Viewers and listeners, can you hit the like button for us? Can you like and share the show? Can you tag a friend in the comment section? If there's a friend of yours that you think would be interested in the I Love CVille show, will you tag them in the comment section of whatever platform you're watching upon? We work hard for you. The only thing we ask in return is you like and share the show. Can you do us that favor, please? A lot I want to cover on the program. Bert Ellis is leading a charge to absolutely eviscerate diversity, equity, and inclusion at the University of Virginia. And now he would you say the lacking, would you say his comments on the record were braggadocious about what UVA is doing with DEI, or would you say that they were just matter of fact? I have not seen commentary from someone in his position, Board of Visitors member, that was this frank and direct in a very long time.
I don't know if I'd call it braggadocious.
You have those quotes ready to go for us of what he said, and then we'll read them live on air. A lot we're going to cover on the program, ladies and gentlemen. It's the Thursday edition of the I Love CVille show, the opening action of March Madness, and a full docket of content for you on what is the water cooler of conversation, the water cooler of chitter chatter and conversation in Charlottesville and in Central Virginia. Judah Wickower, things are absolutely looking good on our end. We can start the program, my friend, when you are ready. Which headline most intrigues you? I kind of ask you that question so you're prepared when I ask it for you on camera. Which headline most intrigues you today and why?
Oh, man, that's a tough one. I've met Castine before, and I had no idea that he was fighting pancreatic cancer. So it's a
John Castine is dead.
Sad news that he's passed.
Yeah, sad news that John Castine has passed, the president of the University of Virginia while I was at the University of Virginia. All right, my friend, we can rock and roll when you're ready.
Quiet on the set.
Good Thursday afternoon, guys. I'm Jerry Miller, and thank you kindly for joining us on the I Love CVille show. Today's program is absolutely loaded with content. In fact, we have so much news to pass along to you, the viewer and listener, that we had topics that did not make the rundown, the headlines that you see on screen. Those topics of significance that did not make the rundown include Albemarle County advertising a 4-cent tax rate increase on real property. I mean, it's bananas what's happening. Albemarle County, ladies and gentlemen, upping the tax rate on personal property and on real estate at a time when we're all penny pinching. That did not make the rundown today. I mean, think about the significance of what we have to cover. when Albemarle County is choosing to advertise real estate and personal property tax rate increases, and we don't have that in the headlines of today's show. We don't have a fantastic commentary from friend of the program, Neil Williamson, who makes multiple pop culture references on the Free Enterprise Forum yesterday. Love Neil Williamson. Love what he stands for. He highlights Tom Petty in the Free Enterprise Forum yesterday and Albemarle County's hesitation or their lack of urgency of adjusting zoning language when it comes to commercial buildings and commercial shopping centers and the opportunity to reposition them as residential. That did not make the rundown today. So when you know topics like that that are not included in our headline list, you know that the show is absolutely loaded. And folks, we have stories that are sad, including John Castine's passing. We have stories that are jaw-dropping, and Bert Ellis going on the record saying, we're going to eviscerate diversity, equity, and inclusion at the University of Virginia. I mean, Ellis is legitimately talking to the media and saying DEI and every aspect of it will be ripped out of the University of Virginia. I want to talk about that today with Judah Wickower. We're going to talk on today's program the collateral damage of Tesla coming to Stonefield. It is getting nasty out there. Is it O'Connell Capital Partners that owns Stonefield, Judah?
I believe so.
The firm out of New York that owns the second most expensive shopping center in all of Central Virginia, the First Barracks Road. We have a counter protest now being planned, Judah, by Musk supporters and Tesla supporters, led by Philip Andrew Hamilton. Yep. So we had a protest by Democrats and socialists and activists that were anti-Tesla at Stonefield. During that protest, there was a miniature counter-protest led by the Republicans and conservatives. Mm-hmm. And now the Republicans and conservatives are going to lead another counter-protest at the shops of Stonefield. The dealership, the gallery hasn't even opened yet.
Yeah.
What is going to happen when there's actually Teslas for sale in Stonefield? What is going to happen when Musk-led initiatives really start impacting Charlottesville? And that's a perfect segue to another headline. UVA School of Medicine, ladies and gentlemen, is facing Musk and Donald Trump budget cuts, revenue funding shortfalls. An estimated $25 million, the Augusta Free Press reports. The UVA School of Medicine is facing a $25 million reduction in funding, thanks to Elon Musk. Today at 2 p.m., the Augusta Free Press reports there's a town hall for UVA School of Medicine employees, and the speculation, the buzz, as Chris Graham reports, is employees of the UVA School of Medicine will be presented a plan where 5, 10, and 15% pay cuts will be considered.
A plan.
You scoff at plan? Are you on screen over there?
No.
Why do you scoff at plan?
Is it a plan if you're telling people that they're going to get a pay cut?
I mean, you're preparing them, aren't you? I mean, if you're having a town hall, I mean, think about what's happening at UVA Health here. Dude, it continues to rain on the UVA Health and School of Medicine brand.
Yeah, no doubt.
It continues to be tarnished.
Chris Graham has some choice words.
Chris Graham is his reporting is not necessarily biased, but he creates a lot of content. I'll try a different approach. Chris Graham's reporting is not necessarily unbiased.
Unbiased, yeah.
Unbiased. He is often including his opinion into his journalism.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that, because in 2025, in this era of influencers in the news, we fit that mold. We offer our perspective on the news cycle locally. And our perspective and how we view the news cycle locally includes our commentary and our opinion. It is not just who, what, when, where, why. And I think that is the future of news. where you have influencers in the space and folks choosing to either agree or disagree, listen or watch the influencers. We really saw this becoming significant in our country in this November Trump-Biden election, where Trump's strategy was to go on as many podcasts as possible, Joe Rogan a perfect example, and allow these podcasters, these influencers, to shape the Trump narrative to their respective audiences. And that catapulted Trump to victory lane. Biden did not do that, the long-form content, probably because of mental decline, thank you. Very respectful way of putting it, mental decline. And can you imagine Joe Biden in a 3-hour setting with Joe Rogan? No, Joe Rogan would have picked him apart like Thanksgiving turkey. The whole world would have seen Biden and what mental state she was in. Can you imagine Kamala Harris in a 3-hour setting with Joe Rogan?
Kind of.
What, would it have just been word salad after word salad? The same 3 or 4 handful of points repeated over and over again? And we're not going to make this about national politics, okay? But my point is, what Chris Graham is doing with the Augusta Free Press is he's peppering the news cycle with the sources that trust him with content, sources he's developed. He's a University of Virginia graduate, and he reports that the School of Medicine is having a town hall meeting today at 2 o'clock, and the chitter chatter is employees of the School of Medicine are going to be presented by the higher ups a plan of 5, 10, and 15% pay cuts. And that's happening at a time where the entire world is trying to stretch a penny. That's happening at a time where Albemarle County, Judah Wickhauer, is going to raise at least they're advertising it. They're advertising it. They haven't made a move on it yet. The real estate tax increase to basically 90 cents per $100 of owned real estate. They're going to raise the taxes on our vehicles and on our automobiles and our personal property. It's bananas out there, ladies and gentlemen. A lot we're going to cover on the program. We're going to talk on today's program the flip book of Ivy Road development as it pertains to the University of Virginia. We're going to talk Day Ames in the transfer portal. He joins Blake Buchanan, and ladies and gentlemen, more players are coming. This firing of Ron Sanchez, where Carla Williams, the athletic director at the University of Virginia, she treated Ron Sanchez as if he was a flat tire patch kit. Nothing more than a stopgap that was used in a time of need. Carla Williams and UVA treated Ron Sanchez and the coaching staff made up of UVA basketball players. Jason Williford played at UVA. He's a UVA loyalist. Chase Coleman played basketball at UVA. He's a UVA loyalist. Kyle Guy, Isaiah Wilkins, both played at UVA. UVA loyalists. Kyle Guy, a national champion, one of the greatest basketball players in UVA history, a national champion. Ron Sanchez and the gentleman who I just mentioned were treated by the University of Virginia brass as nothing more than a flat tire patch kit.
I wonder how the players feel about that.
Well, you got Day Ames now in the transfer portal, and the folks that are saying losing Day Ames is not a big deal, I push back on that significantly. This guy could create off the bounce and get his own shot for himself and other teammates, and he was one of the best offensive weapons for the University of Virginia in the second half of the season. To see him enter the transfer portal is a significant deal, much more so than Blake Buchanan. We'll talk about that on today's program. We're also going to chatter on today's show a comedy program at Pro Renata, if you could highlight that. Mm-hmm. Tim Shropshire coming to Pro Renata on March 27th. Tickets are $10, one of the best comedians in the country at Dr. John Shabe's Crozet location. You can get a table with your friends or your family, $10 entry fee if you'd like, and a couple of hours of fun at a brewery in Albemarle County. This is what's making Crozet's Pro Renata the Disney World in the foothills of the Blue Ridge. experiences offered. And on March 27th, Tim Shropshire will be there, an influencer, a comedian, a writer, and a keynote speaker. Must have tickets, ladies and gentlemen. Judah, a lot we're going to cover on today's program. I'm very excited for today's show. I think you and I have a boatload of ammunition. The headline that most intrigues you and why? Do we go John Castine? I mean, have you guys seen that John Castine is now dead? This is a sad story. Is this the headline that I mean, it's the top of our lead right now.
Yeah.
Our rundown.
My mom worked for him for a good number of years.
Your mom worked for John Castine?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That's how I met him at several of the dinners, the events at the Hill, and I mean, you know,
At Cars Hill.
I wasn't a close friend or anything. I didn't know him very well personally, but he was a decent guy as far as I could tell, and I'm sad to hear that he's passed.
I went to the University of Virginia. My brother went to the University of Virginia. My dad went to the University of Virginia. John Castine was the president at the University of Virginia when my brother and I were students. He led the University of Virginia as president for 20 years. John Castine, to say that he had a larger-than-life personality is an understatement.
Yeah.
When John Castine was in the room, you knew John Castine was in the room. In fact, when John Castine was coming to the room, you knew that John Castine was on his way there. He was a larger-than-life figure. He died on Tuesday of this week with a brief bout with pancreatic cancer. John Castine, 81 years young. I had my cousin from Norfolk was in town with his newly minted fiance. And my cousin on Sunday, on a Sunday a few weeks ago, was going to a show at either the Jefferson or the Southern. It was Big Head Todd was in town.
Wow.
He had tickets to Big Head Todd. And I meet my cousin on the downtown mall for some pre-gaming before the show. We go to Miller's. We go to the livery stable. We go to Jack Brown's. We go back to Miller's. And then I catch an Uber home to Ivy. And he and his newly minted fiance and another couple that was with us go to see Big Head Todd. And one of the things that really struck me, Judah, from my visit with my cousin, my only first cousin on my father's side, Okay. He made this comment to me. He said, Jerry, it's 2025. My cousin's older than I am. He's 50 or so years old. Youthful spirit, zest for life. Engaged for the first time. Married, going to be married next year, 2026. And he said something that struck and stuck with me. He said, Jerry, in 2025, we are going to have the luxury and the pleasure and the resources of living longer than ever. He said, to say that we can live to 100 or beyond is realistic. Yeah. When our fathers were our age, they never anticipated living to 100 or older. But with the advancement of technology and medicine and the innovation with technology and medicine and care, we are going to live to 100 or older. And I said, God willing. And then he said, your children, your two sons, with the advancement and resources that come with technology and innovation and patient care, your two boys, they're 6. In fact, my oldest turned 7 today. He's 7 years old today.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to him. Our youngest is almost 2.5. He said, your boys may flirt with 120 years old. When I see someone like John Castine is dead at 81, it takes me aback. Because I see 81 now, and maybe this is a sign of maturation and being circumspect and having a little bit more life perspective. Mm-hmm. There was a time where I thought 81 was oh so old. And now I see 81 as oh so young. I see a lot of runway left. And pancreatic cancer took John Castine from this planet, the University of Virginia's 7th president, a man who served longer than any president but the university's first, Edwin Alderman. in Cars Hill. He is widely viewed as one of the most significant figures in the history of the University of Virginia. If I had to build a Mount Rushmore, I've had this topic come on the show in the past, a Mount Rushmore, and Neil Williamson and James Watson, I hope you can help me with this topic. John Blair and Georgia Gilmer and Kevin Yancey and Ahmad Hawkins, I hope you can help me with this topic. Jesse Rutherford and Chris Fairchild and Lloyd Snook, I hope you can help me with this topic. If I had to build a Marlene Jones, a Mount Rushmore, Mr. Nate Kibler, if you can help me with this topic, a Mount Rushmore of UVA influence, whose bus would be on that mount? That's a question I have for you. I'm going to answer that question in 15 seconds. First, I want to celebrate Charlottesville Sanitary Supply. 60 consecutive years in business, Andrew Vermillion and John Vermillion. Let's help them get another 60 years and hit the 120 marker, the age I want my kids to live to. Online at charlottesvillesanitarysupply.com and located on East High Street. John and Andrew Vermillion doing business the right way. John Vermillion, the one-time Small Business Person of the Year. Mm-hmm. Who's on the Mount Rushmore of the University of Virginia?
Definitely Castine. I don't know the university as well as you do, though.
See, the first that you would have to say is Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah.
The first you would say that's on the Mount Rushmore, you should say, is Thomas Jefferson. Neil Williamson, I love the Tom Petty reference in your commentary from yesterday. I highlighted it to start the show. Bill McChesney, Neil Williamson, John Blair. Who's on the Mount Rushmore? Thomas Jefferson, clear cut, right?
Yeah.
Is the second, is bust the right word for Mount Rushmore? Is a better word depiction, the second depiction on Mount Rushmore? Should I use bust or depiction, do you think?
Bust isn't wrong, I don't think.
You say bust is good?
Yeah, bust is good, I think.
Okay, so the first bust is Thomas Jefferson. Am I right or wrong here, viewers and listeners?
Yeah, he built it.
Right? He's got to be number one, right? Is number two John Castine? The second longest tenure of any president at the University of Virginia is number two John Castine. He's credited with growing the University of Virginia endowment from $488 million to $5.1 billion. This insulated the institution from significant state budget cuts in the early 1990s. I want to highlight that again. Castine is credited with increasing, upticking, growing the University of Virginia endowment from $488 million to $5.1 billion. That is a 10x plus increase in the endowment. News.virginia.edu, the UVA media arm, UVA Today, which you can find online at news.virginia.edu, has a fantastic, what is it called? I'm at a loss for the word. Obituary for John Castine. This man's administration was credited with admitting more women, international students, and minority students, while adding 20 new degree programs. He was the visionary behind Access UVA. He oversaw dramatic increases in financial aid, opening UVA to students who previously could not have considered attending. In a lot of ways, John Castine may be rolling over in his grave right now, as the UVA Board of Visitors, Bert Ellis, and Youngkin's 13 of 17 appointments cut back and diminish a lot of what Castine stood for. Is John Castine, as you're putting lower thirds on screen, right? Mm-hmm. Number one, or number two on the UVA Mount Rushmore, with Thomas Jefferson being number one. Who's number three on Mount Rushmore? Does a guy like Ralph Sampson make the Mount Rushmore, or is a guy like Tony Bennett ahead of Ralph Sampson on the Mount Rushmore? Or do you say there's no point for sports being on the Mount Rushmore of UVA? Personally, for me, it's Tony Bennett over Ralph. Both friends of the program. Know both well. Is Tony Bennett or Ralph Sampson on the Mount Rushmore of UVA? I say Bennett in that case. Of anyone sports related, Tony Bennett. I had a Terry Holland. I had a Craig Littlepage, Brian O'Connor, Ralph Sampson, Kyle Guy, Tony Bennett. I'll put him in the 3 slot. When do we start talking behind the scenes influence of the University of Virginia? When do we start talking Jaffrey Woodruff, friend of the program, fantastic squash player, the top contributor of donations in University of Virginia history behind the scenes, Jaffrey Woodruff, made the Data Science Center happen, made the MacArthur Squash Center happen. Very behind the scenes and very on the down low. I would say Jaffrey is on the Mount Rushmore of the University of Virginia with individuals with the most significance in the history of shaping UVA. I hope he hears this. I hope someone passes this along to my friend. Does Paul Manning get on that Mount Rushmore? Gave $100 million to the biotechnology Fontaine Manning Research Park. Is he on there? Neil Williamson says Leonard Sandridge deserves a position on the Mount Rushmore of UVA. Neil Williamson highlights the longest tenured president and President Alderman as an option for the bus. Their photos on screen, Neil Williamson. Sandra McDaniel says, how about Darden? Quite impressive. I wrote a paper on him in high school. Sandra McDaniel, could you share more insight into the man whose surname highlights the marquee of the business school? I would love some more intel with the paper that you shared, Sandra McDaniel. You know I respect your opinion tremendously. Margie King Collins says, how about Lars Tiffany? Several national championships. She highlights the lacrosse coach at UVA. Love Coach Tiffany. See the man working out quite often at Boar's Head. James Watson says it's due time. Edgar Allan Poe, Corin Capshaw, Tina Fey, Katie Couric, Tony Bennett, Chris Long, and Alexis Ohanian, the founder of Reddit.
We're going to need a bigger mountain.
This is a significant. It shows you the impact that UVA has, not just in the Commonwealth, not just in the country, but worldwide. I mean, Edgar Allan Poe, one of the most institutional names in all of literature. I learned of Edgar Allan Poe in middle school.
Yep.
Literally in middle school. Corin Capshaw, one of the most successful entrepreneurs and movers and shakers in University of Virginia history, period. Corin Capshaw did not graduate from UVA, though.
I don't think Poe did either.
I'm quite confident you're right. You could probably look it up.
In fact, I don't think he was there for more than a year.
You could also look that up, too. Tina Fey, one of the most noteworthy actresses of her generation. Katie Couric, what? The face of nightly news for at least a generation, maybe 2? Tony Bennett already on the Mount Rushmore. Chris Long, has he done enough to be on the Mount Rushmore? Alexis Ohanian just gave a massive contribution to the women's basketball program. The husband of Serena Williams and the co-founder of Reddit, one of the most popular social media platforms, now publicly traded. What are your thoughts, viewers and listeners? I think these people are locks for the Mount Rushmore. How many busts are on Mount Rushmore, Judah? Is it 5?
It's 4.
Is it 4?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. Judah's scoffing at me.
I'm only laughing because I saw a photo of a gold bust, gold Mount Rushmore with a fifth person on it.
So if memory serves correct from Chris Joyce's 11th grade AP US history class, the bust on Mount Rushmore, Abe Lincoln, Tommy Jefferson, Big George Washington, and Teddy Roosevelt.
Sounds right.
Is that right?
I can look.
Abe, Teddy, Tommy, and George. I got a 5 on the AP history exam, by the way. 5 on the Spanish exam as well.
Is that a good score?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's the top of the best score you can get. James Watson said, Judah's correct, neither graduated from UVA, Corin or Edgar. but UVA takes credit for both. I think these are a lock for as the Castine lower thirds are on screen. Thomas Jefferson, number 1.
Yeah.
John Castine, who died Tuesday, number 2. Jaffrey Woodruff, the top donor at the University of Virginia, behind the scenes, the most influential. His hedge fund, QIM, behind the scenes, extremely influential in this community. And number 4, that one's up in the air. Do you put Tony Bennett on there? Do you put Leonard Sandridge on there? Do you put President Alderman on there? Do you put some of these other suggestions like Tina Fey, Katie Couric, Chris Long, Alexis Ohanian on there? Do you put Sandra McDaniels Darden on there? Do you put Paul McIntyre on there, whose reputation in a lot of ways, his historical reputation, his legacy is a better term, is being tarnished by Charlottesville activist Paul McIntyre? Who is in the 4th bust slot, viewers and listeners? If you're just tuning into the program, the second longest tenure president at UVA, John Castine, has passed away, dead at 81 after a fight with pancreatic cancer. The 7th president in University of Virginia history, a man who took the UVA endowment from $488 million to $5.1 billion, which helped insulate the University of Virginia from significant budget cuts.
No doubt.
The same cuts. Mm-hmm. Life is full circle. Similar cuts that university is facing right now. More on that in a moment. What are your thoughts, viewers and listeners? John Blair's got a comment. I was hoping John Blair would offer a comment. He says, "Congratulations on your son's birthday." Thank you, John Blair. I'm very proud of him, just like I know you are very proud of your fantastic son as well. He says, "A Mount Rushmore implies 4 figures. Thomas Jefferson," he says, should be on there. Colgate Darden is the president who, as a former governor, really got the state to start funding UVA again. Castine certainly brought UVA into its current status as a national university with a national fundraising profile. The last one is tough. Ralph Sampson is who put UVA on the sports map. There is no national profile for UVA sports without Ralph. But a couple of other names for your consideration. Woodrow Wilson is probably the most famous alum of UVA. There is also a case for Joseph Cabell of Cabell Hall. I'm not really sure that UVA is founded without his help in the state legislature. And he also says George Welsh, the football coach, should be an honorable mention consideration. I'll tell you a story. You ready for a story? I pledged Phi Kappa Psi at the University of Virginia. This is the fraternity that's in the end of the Mad Bowl, the most iconic of all the fraternities. I'm not saying it's the best. I'm not saying it's the worst. I'm leaving my personal opinion. Of course I think it's the best. It's the one we joined. It's the one that's at the end of the Mad Bowl down Rugby Road. Can't miss it. Most iconic location. You pledge Phi Kappa Psi, you have to do a lot of stuff. What I had to do is very different than what the goats, the pledges, are doing now. And probably what I had to do was very different than what the goats, the pledges, had to do when my dad was at the University of Virginia. My brother followed me as a pledge at the University of Virginia, also at Phi Kappa Psi. On our composite, the composite is a large photo that highlights the photos of all the brothers. In the dead center of the composite is a picture of Woodrow Wilson, a Phi Kappa Psi, on our composite. We were proud that he was amongst our company at one time. Woodrow Wilson, is he on the Mount Rushmore of UVA? That's a challenging question, only picking 4 of the most influential and noteworthy to shape what is one of the best universities in the world, ladies and gentlemen. All right, it is now 1:05 on a glorious and gorgeous Thursday afternoon, and the opening action of March Madness. Judah Wickhauer, the next headline for the viewers and listeners. James Watson said honorable mention should be Larry Sabato and Professor Julian Bond. James Watson, you make the program better. Your perspective and your command of history in this community is noteworthy, commendable, and appreciated, sir. Jeremy Wilson is watching in Tennessee. He says George Welsh should absolutely be on there. And Jeremy Wilson says, I disagree with Chris Graham of the Augusta Free Press on some of his political views, but he is a good journalist and he's probably a thorn in the athletic department's side. Chris Graham is a University of Virginia graduate. He's often outspoken against what the University of Virginia has done. And if you read his journalism, like I often do, he is a card-carrying Democrat that often throws shade against Republicans and what he likes to highlight, MAGA Republicans, and a lot of his commentary, including in the commentary about the budget cuts the UVA School of Medicine is facing. What is the next headline we have, Judah Wickhauer?
Bert Ellis and the UVA Board of Visitors eviscerate DEI.
Oh my goodness.
initiatives.
Ladies and gentlemen, this story was in the Daily Progress today, and Bert Ellis, who no longer has a nickname on this show, we often nickname Bert Ellis something associated with a box cutter, but we don't do that anymore after hearing from the Ellis team. He is one of 13 of Youngkin's appointments on the Board of Visitors, and I believe is the most influential, the most significant pot stirrer,
Certainly the most outspoken.
And what could be the 2025 North Star of the Board of Visitors is the businessman from Georgia. He speaks on the record with the Daily Progress. Good job to Daily Progress writer Dmitry Martrosov. I can't say his last name. Maybe you can help me with that. Bert Ellis says, and I quote, I'm going to read this verbatim. I'm going to quote it from Bert Ellis. Are you ready? Mm-hmm. I quote, this board unanimously voted to rip out the entire DEI infrastructure and everybody who works in the DEI infrastructure. Absolutely every aspect of it. Every aspect of every program. Every aspect of DEI is to be ripped out, shredded, terminated. End quote. I can't make that up. He utilizes verbs ripped out, shredded, terminated to describe DEI's future at UVA. He issues this statement because the rector, Robert Hardy, initially tried to diminish what the board intended to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion. Robert Hardy, I would say more center-aisled or more left-leaning. Bert Ellis, I would not say is center-aisled. I would say is very conservative. And the rector, Robert Hardy, who clearly is losing power and influence on the Board of Visitors. This guy donated a massive amount of money to the athletic department. Has the football facility, the new football facility named after him, Robert Hardy, he and his wife. Robert Hardy's the guy that owns Keswick Hall. Other hotel properties, including, I believe, does he own the Jefferson? Does his family own the Jefferson Hotel? The Jefferson Hotel Richmond owner. Maybe not. I know Robert Hardy, he owns, definitely owns Keswick. Let's see if I can do a quick Google search. What hotels does Robert Hardy own? There's one in Tennessee. Okay, he owns the Keswick Hall in Keswick, Virginia, and the Hermitage Hotel in Nashville. He's the co-chairman and CEO of H7 Holdings, LLC. He's the rector of the Board of Visitors. And the rector of the Board of Visitors is having his influence chopped out from under him by Bert Ellis in the fact that Youngkin has 13 of 17 appointments on the board. And Ellis is the captain of the 13. Ellis is the alpha dog of the 13. Every sports team, there's an alpha dog. The alpha dog isn't the biggest. Doesn't have to be the biggest. The alpha dog doesn't have to be the fastest. The alpha dog doesn't have to be the strongest. The alpha dog doesn't have to be the loudest. The alpha dog has qualities that are undisputed. Ellis has those qualities. His swagger, how he carries himself, his willingness to say the uncomfortable, thick-skinned. It reminds me of the statement or the phrase, it's not the size of the dog that matters. It's the size of the fight and the dog that matters. And Ellis is now going on victory, on record, and he's saying, you know what? Robert Hardy, the rector, he tried to diminish what the Board of Visitors was going to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm going to go on record in my personal capacity, not speaking for the board, but just speaking for me personally, Bert Ellis. I'm going to tell you, this is what we're going to do to DEI at UVA. We're going to rip it out, we're going to shred it, and we're going to terminate it. His words. And now Glenn Youngkin is going on a national media tour. The man who appointed 13 of 17 to the BOV. And he says, DEI is done at UVA. Today, the University of Virginia Board of Visitors voted for common sense, saying no to illegal discrimination and yes to merit-based opportunity. Youngkin and the board have given Jim Ryan 30 days to report back on compliance when it comes to DEI. They are going to stick Jim Ryan's... Wait. I was going to say something a little graphic there.
That was my guess, too.
Something in a vice. Choosing my words.
I can see where that went.
Can you help me with this one? They're going to hold Jim Ryan accountable. How's that? They're going to hold the president of UVA accountable and make sure that he leads a charge that, Bert Ellis's words, terminates, rips, and shreds DEI away from the University of Virginia. And the interesting thing about this, Judah, I don't see how this does not lead to firings or pink slips for people tied to the DEI department.
Yeah.
Jim Ryan told the board that there's 55 people who primarily work in DEI. The board pushes back on that and says that, well, you know, there's really more than that.
Yeah, we think there might be more. We think you're also spending more than you say you are.
Yeah, so what Ryan's trying to do, the president of UVA, is he's trying to diminish the impact of DEI. Where less than 2 years ago, just a little while ago, they were championing DEI. And they were highlighting that this is one of our important momentums and initiatives and waving the flag.
I think what he's doing, he's trying to hide some of it. Look,
of course that's what he's trying to do. Because he knows the BOV is going to try to, rip it, terminate it, shred it. And the more that's obvious out there, the more ripping, terminating, and shredding happens. Which means people will lose their jobs.
Yeah.
People will be fired tied to the University of Virginia. Mm-hmm. So Ryan's now trying to do defense mode. He's trying to be strategic. God, is the most unwanted job, I hope Jim Ryan hears this, is the most unwanted job in Central Virginia right now Jim Ryan's job?
Probably.
I mean, dude literally is dealing with a board that's his boss that wants him to fire people, is putting his nuts in a vice. Oh, man. Putting his nuts in a vice with the health system.
Putting his beans on the fire.
Putting his beans on the fire with the UVA health system fraud and medical chart changing. Mm-hmm. The pro-Palestine pepper spray, he's the fall guy for that.
Yeah.
Do we think Jim Ryan wanted the Virginia State Police to pepper spray students?
I feel like that's the last thing he would do.
The last thing he would do. But he's become the fall guy for that.
Yeah.
He's the fall guy, Jim Ryan, for not releasing the triple murder football player report.
two reports he won't be releasing.
He won't release the health system report. Is he going to release the report, the investigative report on the pro-Palestine pepper spraying protest from May of last year? We're about a year removed from that. We still don't have that report. Jim Ryan's now going to have to shit can people that are tied to DEI. The board's telling him to do that.
Which he was championing.
Which he was not just championing, he was waving the flag. He was doing the Boston Marathon and the New York, the marathons that he does in the 7 a.m. runs around grounds, basically carrying the DEI flag. I mean, dude makes what? About $1 million and gets to live in Cars Hill? That compensation and not worth what Jim Ryan's going through. You want to see a man that's aged and weathered? Put his photo on screen when he gets the job. We should do this tomorrow. His photo on screen when he took the job and what he looks like now. Bert Ellis, good Lord. And you know what the sad thing is? I said this earlier in the week. The DEI apparatus had to be reimagined. It was bloated. But the DEI apparatus did not need to be eviscerated.
You think?
There was some middle ground here. But what UVA did not do, they didn't see the forest through the trees. When they took the DEI apparatus, the initiative, and they put it front and center, and they made it the narrative, it made the initiative and the apparatus attract attention. And that attention, that bloated payroll, became in the crossfire, got in the crossfire of very powerful and influential people. Most noteworthy, the governor and Bert Ellis. And now they made it a priority to take a Tommy gun and blow Swiss cheese type holes into the apparatus, into the initiative. And now it went from one end of the 180-degree spectrum to the other opposite end of the 180-degree spectrum. And this apparatus, this initiative, is quintessential microcosm 2025 in America. And 2025 in America is no longer the Ronald Reagan ideology, JFK ideology. It's no longer the agree to disagree ideology. It's no longer the we don't agree on this, but we can drink a bourbon and have an emperor of clouds and break some bread and eat some steak frites or a steakhouse at Citizen. We hate you. 2025 is now on a gorgeous and glorious Saturday afternoon. We choose to spend our afternoons protesting an empty storefront in Stonefield because some electric vehicles are going to be sold there. It's not that it used to be this. I don't support the Tesla dealership coming here, but this is a 70-degree Saturday and damn near close to spring. I have things better to do than to hold up signs that were hideously caricatured and spend my afternoon with strangers screaming into the wind that no one can hear but like-minded individuals like myself. Listen to the mindset. 200 people go to a building doesn't even have a sign on it. Doesn't even have any vehicles in it.
Has it even been built?
It's not even open. And they go to a spot and they have a sign. They have signs that have the caricature and the art talent of a third grader. And they scream with strangers, and the only people that hear them are like-minded individuals. This is the world we live in. And this isn't about me and Musk and politics. I'm not telling you whether I like Musk or I hate Musk. I'm just analyzing human behavior here. That's all I'm doing is analyzing human behavior. It's insanity. It's insanity. It's effing insanity. How about you drink some Pro Renata beer? How about you enjoy a concert at Pro Renata on a Saturday? Take your kids on the playground at Pro Renata. Throw some axes. Eat some dinos and some moo through at Pro Renata. Talk to John at Pro Renata. How about you open your pool with some supplies from Charlottesville Sanitary Supply? Insanity. What happened with DEI in Charlottesville, before I go to the next topic, is a microcosm of the world we live in. Where in a very short period of time, it can go from the flag-waving initiative of one of the best universities in the country to being 6 feet underground. Elon Musk is another example. The people that utterly despise Elon Musk are the people 18 months ago that were on Elon Musk's tip.
On his what?
On his tip.
Okay.
They had a Kelly Kapowski, Valerie Malone, Kelly Taylor, Pamela Anderson, CJ Parker poster of Elon Musk in their bedroom. Did you have posters of Kelly Kapowski or Valerie Malone or CJ Parker?
Don't even know who they are.
You don't know who these people are? You don't know who Kelly Kapowski is?
The name sounds vaguely familiar. If I had to
Kelly
guess, I'd say
Kapowski.
90210.
Saved by the Bell.
Saved by the Bell, okay.
Tiffany Amber Thiessen. You didn't have her poster in your room?
No.
Jenny Garth.
I was a little
Valerie
bit,
Malone.
I was a little bit older than you.
CJ Parker.
My
Baywatch.
sisters may have been into those shows.
Jeez
I
Louise.
just never...
The people that hate Musk today had a
Loved him
life-size poster and cutout of him in their bedroom 18 months ago. Make it make sense.
I can't.
Make it make sense for me, please. And I'm just talking human behavior here. This isn't about politics. This isn't about politics. This isn't about Doge.
I was just reading
This
through...
isn't about Trump.
I was just reading through a bunch of comments of people saying, "Oh, you know, it's a shame that I don't have the money to switch cars right now." It's like there are a comment after comment of people being sorry that they bought a car a few years ago. That's just, you're right. It's make it make sense.
Make it make sense.
It's
just-
a car. Did you like the car when you bought it?
Make it make sense. Your car is not your personal brand.
Yeah.
Your car is not your identity. Your car is not your identity. What is the next headline? Judah Wickower, jack of all trades, jack of all wits.
Were we on the Burt Ellis one still?
We
had
covered that
moved
one.
On to no, I know that, but
Randy O'Neill, thank you for watching the
collateral
program.
damage of Tesla and Stonefield.
Okay, why don't we talk about that as I get off this topic? I'll close this topic with this. What will be the collateral damage of the Tesla dealership opening in Stonefield? You got that lower third on screen?
Yeah.
What will be the collateral damage of this?
I don't know, but I'm hoping that they are civil over the next weeks and potentially months. I mean,
Let me ask you this. If you work for the Tesla gallery in Stonefield, are you going to fear for your safety?
I would hope not, but
Will you feel for your safety if you work at the Tesla dealership in Stonefield? Let me ask you this question.
I might.
If you're the direct neighbor of the Tesla gallery in Stonefield, the direct neighboring businesses, is your business model going to suffer because you're next to the Tesla gallery?
I mean, is that crazy that we have to even ask that question?
There are people lighting the cars on fire.
I know.
The FBI legitimately is investigating Tesla terrorist attacks right now.
It's nuts.
It is nuts. I'm sincerely asking the viewer and listener this question. Stonefield, when this dealership, this gallery opens, and you're the neighbor to this gallery, can you ask O'Connell Partners for a reduction in rent? Because they've brought what many in the community call the commercialized version of the devil to the shopping center?
I mean, everybody would ask for that.
Will there be graffiti? Will there be broken glass? Will there be violence? Will there be employees that fear for their lives? If you're the neighboring businesses, will your business suffer? What does this do to the shopping center in Tota? These are very fair questions. Why are they fair questions? Because we live in Charlottesville. We live in a community where the ideology is the antithesis of the business model that's coming here. That's some fodder, some chitter chatter for your cocktail party this weekend. Next headline, what do you got?
UVA School of Medicine considering pay cuts.
So I touched on this briefly. Chris Graham of the Augusta Free Press cites sources in the UVA School of Medicine that there's going to be a town hall meeting today at 2. And in this town hall meeting at 2 p.m., employees are being presented a plan where 5, 10, and 15% pay cuts will be implemented by the School of Medicine. 5, 10, and 15%. This is...
You gotta love corporations.
This is significant pay cuts here.
Yeah.
5, 10, and 15%. The School of Medicine is facing an estimated $25 million reduction, Chris Graham reports of the Augusta Free Press, in funding from the Elon Musk chainsaw, he writes. And because of that shortfall, the School of Medicine, 5, 10, and 15% pay cuts for their employees. The cuts in National Institutes of Health funding for medical research were announced by Trump and Musk on the 7th of February. They want to save $4 billion a year with these cuts. Graham very accurately asked this question. The endowment at UVA is $14 billion with a B dollars, $14 billion. Why are they not using some of the endowment money to keep rank and file employees from having their salaries cut? Fair question. Albemarle County, I'm gonna link this. Neil Williamson, you'll appreciate this, Neil. I'm going to make a segue or a parallel or a link to Albemarle County. There's many in the community that are extremely angry. Albemarle County, the county executive and the board of supervisors are considering the budget for 2026. We're talking the 6th largest county in the Commonwealth, a budget well north of $600 million a year. And in this budget, there's very little incremental revenue that is going to be allocated to affordable housing. And that's chapped the tail feathers of activists in our community. Ned Galloway was on the show this past Friday, friend of the program. Ned and I don't agree on everything. We agree on a lot of stuff. But we do it in a way where it's respectful and friendly, and then we go sip a bourbon and respect each other. He came up with the idea, let's consider taking money out of the CIP fund and allocating it to affordable housing so we don't have to raise taxes as much on residents that are strapped. Still, they're going to raise the taxes on personal property. I'm against that. Still, they're going to raise the tax rate on personal property and real estate. I'm against both of those. Why I'm against that is because our assessments went up, so they're already getting incremental revenue on the assessed value of our homes increasing. They certainly don't need to increase the tax rates, but they're doing it anyway. At least they're advertising it. Galloway, who I hope Ned hears this. Ned, I hope you hear this. I'm giving you some props here. He seems to be very level-headed. He's about to go into his 3rd term. The worst kept secret in all of Central Virginia and in Albemarle County is Ned Galloway is going to run again. We know he's going to run again. He hasn't announced it. He's going to run again. He's going to run again. I hope he hears this. He says, let's take some money out of the CIP fund to fund housing affordability. I love that idea because he's taking money that's already here, already in the budget, already on the balance sheet. And he's saying, we're going to shift it from this to that because that's what some in the community want. Some in the community want. I heard B. Lepisto Kirtley talking about that this morning. Supervisor Kirtley said that was a really good idea. And it seemed to have some political pull or political
cachet,
willingness Galloway's approach to funding shortfall is good. UVA, will you follow suit by taking money out of your $14 billion endowment? What was the number Rob Neal suggested to us the other day? A $14 billion, my calculator doesn't even go up that high. At a 6% return, it's like, what was that? What was the return I said? Was it like $800 million?
I don't remember.
Is that too much? No, that makes sense. Because 10% of $14 billion is $1.4 billion. So if you get a 6% return on a $14 plus billion endowment, you're talking what, 800 and some million return? Why don't we use some of that to keep the rank and file at the School of Medicine from taking a cut of their pay?
Right.
Jeez Louise.
That's essentially what Graham says. He says that $25 million would seem to be a drop in the bucket at UVA, a school with a $5.8 billion annual budget and $14.2 billion endowment. And then his sarcasm comes out. Wild idea here. The endowment is there for a reason, right?
Yeah. Neil Williamson, president of the Free Enterprise Forum, said, I would not be surprised if, considering the current stock performance, Tesla sales expansion plans shift and the Charlottesville store never opens. All right, how about a prop bet? Let's do a prop bet, Judah. Let's you and I do a prop bet. A 750 milliliter bottle of 75 and under. It's got to be between $50 and $75. Brown juice. I really like the Macallan 12 that you bought the studio bar.
So do I.
Do you want to do a prop bet on the Tesla gallery opening?
Not really.
Why not? God, why don't you like to gamble?
Because I have notorious bad luck.
There's no such thing as bad luck. There's no such thing as bad luck. We make our own luck in life. And we make our own luck in life by the work we put into whatever we're doing, by the practice we put into whatever we're doing, and by the decision making and by hedging outcomes. Some of us are just better at it than others. Tesla dealership opening in Stonefield. Do you think it's going to open, or do you not think it's going to open?
I think it's going to open.
You think it's going to open. Neil Williamson says he doesn't think it's going to open. Is a good choice for you to hedge risk, to listen to what the president of the Free Enterprise Forum says, and this prop bet, a man that's got a lot of institutional knowledge? Should you listen to Neil Williamson in our prop bet?
Possibly. That's if I agree to a prop bet.
Do you think it's going to open or not for a 750 milliliter bottle of booze? Are you going to listen to Neil?
I'm not agreeing to a prop bet, but I think it's going to open.
So you're going to go against what Neil is saying? Are we going to prop bet?
No.
Why aren't we going to prop bet?
Because I don't feel strongly enough about this to risk.
You know you drink the booze when I drink it too.
I know.
Okay. I also think this is going to open. I think this is going to open because whether it opens or not, Tesla's on the hook for the lease.
Yeah.
And I think Elon Musk is it called a megalomaniac?
I mean, that is a word that could be used for
Elon
Musk.
Elon Musk
I'm not going to argue that.
He epitomizes the dark triad.
Epitomizes.
Do you know what the dark triad
triad
is in psychology?
I could guess.
Narcissism, Machiavellism,
and
and psychopathy.
Psychopathy. Wow.
Psychopathy. Thank you.
I could be pronouncing it wrong. It could be
is
psychopathy.
The dark triad, and it's his biggest strength and it's his biggest weakness. And what haters don't realize, the people that are burning his vehicles do not realize, the people that are protesting his dealerships don't realize that this level of hate and protest and violence is, pun intended, fueling his fire and driving him.
You think he gets off on this?
He gets off on this. I know the personality type extremely well. I know the personality type inside and out, the dark triad. He loves this, embraces it. It motivates him. It gets him up earlier in the morning. It drives him to levels of OCD, levels of 19-hour workdays. He notoriously sleeps at work and not in his house. It drives him. I think that thing opens. Sandra McDaniel says she bets it will open. Bill McChesney says he has calls for him to resign from Tesla. That's not going to happen. Do you think it's going to open, viewers and listeners? I think it's absolutely going to open.
Yeah. My reasoning is the same as yours. There's a lease in place.
Well, regardless of the lease, it would make him look weak. And there's few things. There's few things Musk wants more than looking weak.
Okay, but I seriously doubt that the Stonefield Gallery is even on his radar.
I disagree.
You disagree?
I disagree. I think
Okay.
he is privy and aware of more than we give him credit for. Because you're probably dealing with, and this is not me pro-Musk or me anti-Musk, you're dealing with someone that is probably on the autistic spectrum, on the genius IQ spectrum, on the dark triad spectrum, OCD spectrum. People of this level of high functionality are unique would be a nice way of putting it. All right. It's the 1:37 marker on a glorious and gorgeous Thursday afternoon in our building in downtown Charlottesville. Next headlines, Judah Wickauer, what do you have?
Next up is the flip book.
Man, I'm going to have to save this for tomorrow again. I didn't do it yesterday. I'm going to do it again tomorrow. Save it again tomorrow. I promise you, I will talk about the University of Virginia's influence on the Ivy Road corridor. I promise you. Their $20-some million purchase of Ivy Square Shopping Center, where Foods of All Nations is located. What they've done to the old Cavalier Hotel, the Cavalier Inn, right there on the corner, caddy corner from the tennis courts. There used to be a hotel there. Data science, Karsh Institute, their plans for building student housing for second years on Ivy Road, dropping $20 million on Ivy Square. I will straight up tell you right now, some of the most valuable real estate in the city of Charlottesville is a afterthought, red-headed stepchild shopping center named the University Shopping Center, where the Papa John's is located, where Tokyo Rose used to be located, where my favorite shop, the tennis shop owned by Lou Stevens, is located. There's a nail salon there. There's a Chinese restaurant there. That eclectic and red-headed stepchild shopping center is office condos, and they're owned by a handful of people. Hunter Craig's got a position in there. That shopping center, most notably the dirt under the shopping center, some of the most valuable real estate in the city of Charlottesville, ladies and gentlemen. And no one could get control of it because they're office condos. And I know all about office condos as someone who owns the largest position of office condos in the building we're sitting in right now. Is the last headline Blake Buchanan and Day-Day Ames?
Yep.
Day-Day Ames has entered the transfer portal. He has been on grounds for 1 year. He transferred from Kansas State, where he played basketball his freshman year. He played basketball his sophomore year this past season at UVA. He started the year off rough, but he finished the year off strong. And in the second half of this campaign, Day-Day Ames was one of the best players on the roster. With Day-Day entering the transfer portal and Blake Buchanan, I assure you others will follow. It's like a game of dominoes. It's like a house of cards. And this is why I highlighted that what Carla Williams and the athletic department did to Ron Sanchez, where they treated the coach like a flat tire patch kit, nothing more than a stopgap that was used for their need, for their desperation.
The players all saw that.
The players all saw that. They're not dumb. They were loyal to Sanchez. They are loyal to Sanchez. And Sanchez was treated like doo-doo on the bottom of your shoe, fired in a hotel room in Charlotte a couple hours after he loses to Georgia Tech in the ACC tournament. They don't even let him get back to his house and his family and his kids. They don't even call him into the office of the boss to fire him face to face.
Yep.
They fire him when he's alone with his Samsonite suitcase in a hotel in another state after the season ended in disappointment, after they allowed him to go to a press conference after the game and have questions from the media. Are you going to be the coach next year? Ooh. And he answers the question, yes, I've done enough to coach this team next year.
Wow.
On the record, in the media, cameras and reporters and recorders in front of him. And then he leaves that press conference to go pick up his Samsonite in his hotel when he's by himself, and he finds out he's fired. And the players saw that. The players are loyal to Sanchez. And they haven't even announced the new
Even
coach.
if they weren't loyal to Sanchez, they can see the disloyalty in the act.
There it is, Judah
And
Wickauer.
you're asking them to follow an honor code when there's no honor being shown from leadership?
There it is, Judah Wickauer.
Come on.
Come on. There it is, Judah Wickauer. And the least strategic firing I've ever seen. Because Ryan Odom still has not been hired, the VCU coach, who's linked to this job. And he hasn't been hired because his team is playing in the NCAA tournament and is still alive. So he can't talk about going to UVA. Mm-hmm. The transfer portal opens on Monday. What happens if VCU goes on a run to the Sweet 16? I'm not saying they will, but we've seen VCU and Shaka Smart make the Final Four in the past. Carla Williams and the athletic department spit on Ron Sanchez. And they spit on Ron Sanchez when they didn't need to spit on Ron Sanchez. Yeah. They could have just kept him around as the coach until Ryan Odom's season was over and said, Sanchez, off the record between you and I, you're probably not keeping your job, but you're under contract, and we'll even bonus you if you can keep guys from entering the transfer portal and leaving the show, leaving the ship, leaving the program. Mm-hmm. This is called not seeing the forest through the trees. And that's how we will close Thursday edition of the I Love CVille show. For Judah Wickauer, my name is Jerry Miller.